My name is Janine Crawford. I am 55 years old, and for most of my adult life, I believed in quiet support, the kind that doesn't ask for credit, that stands behind rather than beside. I thought that was what partnership meant. Until the night I became a punchline. The Gala for Whitfield Innovations was held at the Magnolia Grand Ballroom, the kind of place with glass chandeliers and champagne that never runs dry. My husband, Gregory, had been climbing the ranks there for the past 2 years. He told me it was important I came this time. "Eleanor asked about you personally," he said, adjusting his tie. "You'll finally get to see what I've built." I spent the week preparing. The green dress, the shoes, the hair, the research. Yes, the research. I knew the company's numbers better than most of its board. I used to be a financial analyst. Before stepping back so Gregory could chase his next promotion without guilt. As we entered the ballroom, people smiled at Gregory, shook his hand, and looked right through me. I was used to that part. What I wasn't prepared for was the seating arrangement. "You'll be sitting right here," said Eleanor Whitfield, CEO and self-proclaimed visionary, gesturing to a round table near the center. Gregory, of course, is at the head table with the other executives. It stung, but I nodded politely and approached my assigned seat. That's when I saw it. A place card, printed in elegant cursive, resting beside the wine glass. But it didn't say Janine Crawford. It read, Gregory's Tagalong Nobody. There was a pause in my chest, a silence so loud it rang in my ears. I looked around. Someone giggled, another stifled a gasp. Then the laughter spread like fire. Not everyone laughed, but no one stopped it, not even Gregory. He sat just a few tables away. He didn't stand. He didn't speak. He didn't even look at me. I picked up the card, tucked it into my purse, and walked toward the exit. But as I passed Eleanor, I paused just long enough to lean in and whisper, "If I were you, I'd check your compliance files." Then I walked out. And that's the moment I stopped being invisible. Long before I became Gregory's Tagalong, I was Janine Crawford, CFA, PhD, and founder of Crawford Analytics. I didn't start in anyone's shadow. Back in 1994, I was the woman who flagged suspicious discrepancies in pharmaceutical R&D spending, prompting an SEC audit that saved a pension fund from losing millions. That report got me published in 3 industry journals. I had a reputation not for flash or flare, but for precision, for seeing patterns other analysts missed. I met Gregory during our last semester at the University of Michigan. I was elbow deep in financial modeling. He was ranting about inefficient cloud infrastructure over pizza and soda. We clashed and clicked within the same breath. "I'm going to change how the world works," he said. "And I'm going to make sure the numbers back it up," I replied. We were both broke, both stubborn, and both certain that we were going to build something powerful together. We made a promise that night: no matter where life took us, we would be a team. No competition. No ego. Just 2 people pushing each other forward. For a while we kept that promise. When he was preparing for his first big interview, I stayed up late coaching him through technical questions and market research. When I got my first client, he celebrated with me like I'd won the lottery. We were hungry, scrappy, and equal. Eventually my consulting work picked up enough traction to pay the bills. I worked from a small sunlit office in our apartment, using spreadsheets and coffee to help small investors avoid big mistakes. The thrill of solving puzzles, of turning numbers into insight, never left me. Then Gregory got promoted. Again and again. Each time I cheered louder. Each time he stood a little further ahead. And slowly, my work stopped being our work and became something Janine does. I noticed the shift, but I didn't fight it. I told myself I was supporting him, holding the net beneath his ambition. But what I didn't realize was that while I held the net, I was falling through it inch by inch. And by the time we reached Whitfield Innovations, I wasn't his partner anymore. I was his background. The shift from being seen to being overlooked doesn't happen in one grand gesture. It starts with the small things. Like when Gregory stopped asking for my thoughts on financial headlines, or when he'd come home buzzing about visionary meetings with Eleanor Whitfield, but never once mentioned my name when talking about the insights I'd shared over breakfast. Eleanor quickly became the center of every conversation. Eleanor thinks we need to be more agile. Eleanor says the future is in strategic convergence. Eleanor has a gift for seeing potential others miss. What Eleanor really had was an eye for influence and the precision of a surgeon when it came to slicing people out of the picture. I tried being supportive. I smiled through the stories. I even suggested we invite Eleanor for dinner. "She's probably too busy," Gregory said quickly. "Executive planning, investor rounds, board calls. She doesn't really do casual." Instead, she did curated. Eleanor began sending carefully worded texts just to me after each company milestone. "Janine, what a wonderful thing it must be to have the flexibility to support Gregory's work so completely." Or, "Not many women would be content focusing on passion projects while their husbands shape the future." Always polite, always sweet, always dripping with condescension. They weren't messages, they were microblades. Gregory read them and shrugged. "She includes all the spouses, you're being sensitive." But I wasn't being sensitive, I was trained in spotting patterns. And Eleanor had a very specific one. She was repositioning me subtly, deliberately from professional equal to supportive wife with hobbies. It wasn't just Eleanor either. Gregory started quoting her as if she were gospel. If I voiced concern over a tech stock's rising debt, Gregory would counter with, "Eleanor believes traditional metrics don't reflect innovation cycles." He didn't even realize it, but he had stopped valuing my expertise. He didn't see me as a partner anymore. He saw me as someone adjacent to success, not a source of it. And I let it happen. Until that gala. When the invitation to the Whitfield Innovations Winter Gala arrived, it came in a navy blue envelope with gold foil lettering. Formal, exclusive, hand-delivered. Inside was a note, supposedly from Eleanor herself. "We'd be honored to welcome Mrs. Janine Crawford this year. It's time you experienced the full spirit of the Whitfield family." I remember feeling something shift in my chest when I read that. Maybe I thought, after all this time, I was being seen again. Not just as Gregory's wife, but as me. I spent the week preparing like it was my first major pitch in years. I chose a green satin dress, subtle but strong, and pulled out the pearl earrings Gregory had given me on our 10-year anniversary. I researched the company's recent acquisitions and reviewed every financial filing from the last 2 quarters. If anyone at that gala wanted to talk shop, I'd be ready. And for a brief, fragile moment, I felt like myself again. The ballroom sparkled with crystal and conversation. Gregory walked a half step ahead of me, greeting people with charm. He didn't introduce me to anyone. I had to smile and nod as if I belonged. Then Eleanor appeared. All silver silk and curated warmth, she greeted Gregory with a kiss on the cheek before turning to me. "Janine," she said, as if she were surprised I accepted the invitation, "you actually came." "Thank you for suggesting it," I replied, keeping my voice even. "Well, Gregory deserves his +1 present tonight," she said, ushering us toward the seating area. The phrase stung. +1, not wife, not partner, just a +1. She led us to a circular table near the middle. "Gregory, you're right here at the head table with me," she announced, gesturing grandly. "Janine, I believe your card is just over here." I walked toward the second table, scanning the place cards. Jennifer Walsh, David Kim, Sarah Chin. Then I saw mine. Elegant cream cardstock, deep blue ink, curved lettering. But it didn't say Janine Crawford. It said, "Gregory's Tagalong Nobody." The silence inside me cracked open. Someone laughed, another gasped. The ripple of amusement spread like perfume in warm air. I looked up. Gregory was already seated. He didn't stand. He didn't speak. He didn't even blink. I didn't cause a scene. I didn't cry or demand an apology. I simply picked up the card, slipped it into my clutch, and walked out of the ballroom with the same calm I used to bring into investor meetings. But inside, something had cracked, and through that crack, the old Janine began to breathe again. The taxi ride home was silent. I stared out the window, replaying every moment of the evening, the look on Eleanor's face, the laughter at the table, Gregory's silence. When we reached the driveway, I tipped the driver, stepped out, and closed the door behind me with finality. The next morning, I sat at the kitchen table in my robe, sipping black coffee, laptop open. I wasn't sure what I was looking for at first, but my fingers knew where to go. Edgegar filings, Bloomberg terminal, internal SEC updates, corporate databases I hadn't touched in months. The familiar rhythm of keystrokes returned like an old melody. Whitfield Innovations' most recent quarterly report was filled with carefully packaged language. But behind the gloss, I spotted something. Executive stock option grants aligned suspiciously close to major public announcements. Too close. The timing wasn't illegal, but it was convenient. I opened a spreadsheet, created timelines, mapped stock movements, compared grant dates to press releases. The patterns jumped out like neon. Over the next few days, I reviewed past filings, revenue recognition discrepancies. Costs quietly shifted between quarters. R&D expenses that appeared, vanished, then reappeared in odd categories. Sloppy, overconfident, classic signs of a company trying to inflate short-term performance. And then came the email. Anonymous, sent to a burner account I used for research forums. I don't know who you are, but your posts are right. I've been working in accounting at Whitfield for 2 years. We've been told to clean up numbers every quarter. I've saved emails, want them? Attached were internal threads, meeting notes, screenshots. And one email thread in particular, a message from Eleanor. We'll shift the development cost to Q2 and announce early beta next week. That should bump the share price just before the executive grants vest. I read it 3 times. This wasn't just mismanagement. This was intentional manipulation designed to profit leaders at the expense of shareholders. I crafted an anonymous post on a respected investor forum under the username EquitySentinel55. Red Flags AT Whitfield Innovations, a financial deep dive. I included everything: charts, screenshots, side-by-side comparisons to industry norms. Language designed to educate, not sensationalize. The post went live at 7:12 a.m. on a Wednesday. By noon, it had been shared across 4 forums. By evening, it had over 38,000 views. And by Thursday morning, financial journalists started asking questions. My inbox flooded. And for the first time in years, I felt it again. The click. The clarity. The calm of being exactly where I belong. In control, in my field, in my power. They had mistaken my silence for weakness. What they'd really done was wake me up. By Friday morning, the media storm had arrived. Whitfield Innovations under scrutiny after anonymous analyst exposes financial irregularities was the headline on the front page of 2 major financial blogs. Bloomberg picked up the thread. Then the Wall Street Review. All citing the same anonymous source, EquitySentinel55. Me. Stock analysts began downgrading Whitfield's projections. Investor confidence faltered. The company's shares fell 9% in a single day. And still, Gregory hadn't said a word. Until he burst through our front door at 6:45 p.m., that Friday, his tie half untied, his face a mess of disbelief and panic. "Have you seen the news?" he asked, even though the TV in our living room was playing it on loop. He dropped his briefcase, something he never did, and collapsed into the armchair like someone twice his age. "They're investigating Eleanor," he said, rubbing his forehead. "There's talk of a formal inquiry. Some internal emails leaked. This is bad, Janine, like career-ending bad." I listened, unmoved. People think this analyst Equity Sentinel might be from inside the company. "They're not," I said, sipping tea. He didn't catch the meaning. "Eleanor says it's sabotage. She's blaming lower-level accounting, says they misreported without authorization. But God, some of those emails have her name on them." That's when I knew. Eleanor had started to feel the walls close in, and like most arrogant people who think they're untouchable, she would throw anyone under the bus to save herself. Gregory looked at me for the first time in months like I might actually have answers. "Do you understand what's happening here? I mean, really understand it?" I stood and walked to my desk. From the drawer, I pulled a folder. Inside were pages of my own analysis, news articles, and the anonymous insider messages I'd received. And on top, I placed the place card from the Gala, Gregory's Tagalong Nobody. I laid it in front of him without a word. He stared at it for a long time, then looked up at me, shame painted across every inch of his face. "You knew," he whispered. "You've known, all along." "I saw the numbers before your board did," I said. "And I did something you and your precious CEO never thought I could do. I made the truth louder than your silence." The next morning, Whitfield issued a press release stating that Eleanor Whitfield had been placed on administrative leave pending internal investigation. By noon, trading of Whitfield shares was paused due to unusual market activity. By Sunday, a journalist from the Wall Street Journal reached out asking Equity Sentinel for comment. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. My work had already spoken. And it was still echoing. 3 weeks after the gala, I moved out. Not in anger, not in chaos, just clarity. I packed my things in silence, 6 boxes, 2 suitcases, a framed copy of my PhD, the place card, still pristine in its cruelty, now tucked between documents that reminded me who I really was. Gregory didn't try to stop me. He stood in the hallway, arms crossed over guilt, watching as I loaded the car. "Janine," he said finally, "I didn't know it had gone this far." I looked him in the eye. "That's the problem, Greg, you didn't care to ask." The apartment I rented downtown was smaller but brighter, no ghosts in the corners, no resentment lingering in the walls, just space, clean, honest space. I hung my credentials on the wall, every degree, every certification, every award I'd earned but had tucked away for years. And then something happened. Whitmore Capital called. They'd seen the Equity Sentinel posts. They wanted to meet. A quiet lunch at a quiet bistro turned into a job offer within 20 minutes. Director of Research. Full autonomy. And a salary that, frankly, made Gregory's last promotion look like a tip. My first assignment, a biotech firm with suspicious revenue reporting and an acquisition offer on the table. It took me less than a week to uncover the pattern. Deferred trial losses disguised as R&D innovation costs. Revenue projections built on manipulated metrics. I presented my findings to the board in a closed-door session. By the end of the day, the acquisition was dead, and the company's CEO was on a call with their attorneys. That single report saved Whitmore $38 million. When the partners applauded me at our next meeting, I didn't feel triumphant. I felt restored, recentered, seen. Not because I demanded it, but because I stopped accepting anything less. The industry started whispering again, but this time not about Gregory's rising star or Eleanor's ruthless charm. They were whispering about me. About the woman who dismantled a tech empire without ever raising her voice. About the one they never saw coming. It's been 6 months since I left that ballroom. The name Janine Crawford now appears on white embossed business cards that read, Director of Equity Research, Whitmore Capital. My calendar is full, but my mind is quiet. No more deciphering backhanded compliments. No more shrinking to keep someone else comfortable. No more waiting for acknowledgement that was never coming. I live alone in an apartment that faces east. Sunlight pours in every morning, washing the hardwood floors in gold. I start my days with black coffee, clean numbers, and the knowledge that every decision I make is mine. No compromise, no erasure. Just clarity. Every Friday evening I sit on my balcony with a glass of wine and watch the city pulse with life. I used to think silence meant weakness. Now I know better. Silence is just the inhale before the reckoning. And when I finally exhaled, they heard me. All of them. If Janine's story resonated with you, tap that like button right now. Have you ever been underestimated? Pushed aside? Told your work didn't matter? Tell us your story in the comments. We read every single one. And if you believe that the truth told quietly and with precision can be more powerful than any public tantrum, share this video. Subscribe for more stories of quiet justice, personal power, and women who refuse to stay invisible. Because being overlooked is not the end of your story. It might just be the beginning.